Welcome back to the next episode of Driver Stories. Today we have, I don't know what you want to call them. We have two veterans of the cryogenic industry. Donnie Stevens and Steve Myers are joining us today. So let's give it up for Donnie and Steve.
Go ahead, Donnie.
All right,
Steve.
So before we get started, one of the first things we always do is we get people to talk to us about their backgrounds. So Steve, why don't you, or Donnie, who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Donnie. You're older than me.
Oh,
You're not as pretty as me, but you're older.
if you say so.
So Donnie, where did you start your trucking career at?
Yes, back in 1977, I
Holy
drove a
moly.
straight truck for a few months, and then I started doing odd and end jobs, washing trucks, greasing them, and got involved in it. And then the log trucks that we washed and greased, I got in good with people. They needed drivers, so I started riding with my brother and some of my friends, watching them. They let me drive. Then after a while, I started driving, and I started driving a log truck. Done that for about 16, 17 years. Then I got into the CO2. There for about 26 and a half years before I come to LGT.
So what made you change from logging to CO2?
I had a cousin that was terminal manager at Carbonic Industries before Air Gas bought them.
Okay.
And he came up and talked to me, and I said, well, I'll give it a try. So I went down and got the job, and when I started, I liked it, so I stayed with it.
Okay.
And
So always out of one
Mississippi.
location?
Yeah.
Always out of Star, Mississippi.
Well, I started in Star, and then they opened up a location in Union City, Tennessee, loading off a rail car, and I went up, and I think it was 97, I believe it was,
Okay.
went up there to run off the rail cars to Tyson Food. It took like 5-6 loads a day,
Okay.
every day.
So first you were a driver, and then you were a mechanic?
Well, I was a mechanic off and on the whole time.
Okay.
When I went to Union City, wasn't nobody up there but me and one more driver. After we finally hired another one, anything broke, if I could fix it, we fixed it without taking it to the shop.
Okay.
That way we kept making money.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am now.
So I'll bet people don't know this about you, but you drove for Air Gas for how many years did you say?
Nearly 26.
And you drove with Terry Winstead,
Yep.
and you drove with Marvin Forshee,
Mm-hmm.
and who else? Bruce Pritchard and his
Bruce.
dad?
His dad. And then that's about the only one that's here with us now that I drove with. That there's a bunch of them, but
Yeah. There's a bunch that went through Star, Mississippi,
Yep.
CO2. Huh. Wow. Well, Steve, how about you, Mr. You
Nah,
started as a farming
Yep.
community.
I was born in Chinook, Kansas, and my mom and dad farmed, and they had a restaurant called the Orchid Buffet, and I growed up there, and then
Where's Chinook, Kansas?
it's down in southeast Kansas, between Kansas City and Pittsburgh, for those of you who don't. Well, you need to learn how to read a map, not use your phone. It's down on 169 highway. Boy, that blew your mind, didn't it? Well, anyways, about 3.5, 4 miles off 169 highway to the west, I was born a poor little dirt farmer. And then my daddy bought me a truck. And I've been in a truck ever since. Well, first I went to the Army. A lot of you did. We got a lot of great drivers here that I want to say thank you to, who are veterans. Marines, Navy, Air Force, Army, of course Army, because that is the top of the force. Even though our boss was Miss Pam Speckler, was a captain in the United States Air Force. Some of them I know is Harold McKinney, United States Army. Joe Coburn, United States Marine Corps. George Harris, United States Army. Myself, United States Army. I trained him too, and I forgot your name, and I'm sure sorry. United States Marine Corps, up there in Pennsylvania. What's his name?
There's a lot up there.
Rich Lesher. Rich, I'm sorry. We have a lot of people here at LGT that are prior service and are damn good drivers. And they're faithful to their company and they're faithful to their country. And I'm proud of you. But anyways, back to the farm. We growed wheat, milo, and soybeans, and had cattle and hogs. And I've shoveled a lot of shit. And I have, believe it or not, talked a lot of it. But I got out of the service in July or June of 1984. And my uncle had a semi, and he was driving for Coit Trucking out of Kansas City, Kansas. And he said, "You want to learn to drive a truck?" I said, "Hell, I already know how to drive a truck." And went with him for, 2 years. Bounced him around in the bunk. And then I got my own truck in 1987. It was an old International. It was a beauty. Oh, no. I forgot. I went to work for MCI Transportation out of Joplin, Missouri. That was my first job, and then my uncle. Boy, that was 1973 cab over. You boys know it. 7-speed. Do about 35 miles an hour in a headwind. Take you all day across the state of Kansas. And the radio didn't work good. CB didn't work good. Well, anyways, I thought, man, I'm a super trucker. And I had a job offer to go to work for Walmart. And that was in 1987. I says, crap, I don't want to go to Walmart. They drive them damn cab overs like I was driving. My uncle's got a frickin' conventional Peterbilt 379. I said, I got to drive the big truck. That was the dumbest mistake I ever made in my life. I'd be retiring right now a millionaire. No, here I am. Still driving them damn big pretty trucks. Well, with that all said, I want to tell y'all something. Slow down and throw them damn phones away. I have worked 3 wrecks that will never leave my mind as long as I live. I watched a wreck up here by Freeport, Nebraska. I watched one up there in North Dakota. And I watched the one in Freeport, Nebraska. 3 little boys in the back seat of that car died, and the mama was 8 months pregnant. And it was all over a damn text message. If you don't have the ability to keep from texting or playing with those phones, take it and throw it in the bunk. And when you stop to get fuel, get up there and get in your bunk and see who had called you. If it's a missed call from, I hear this story all the time. Well, Air Products or Air Gas or LGT or whoever called and they're going to reroute the load. reroute the load. When you get up, look at that phone, and then reroute the load. Don't take the time to look at that phone and go down the road at 65 mile an hour or 70 mile an hour, whatever you're doing. Because it only takes a split second to take a person's life. And that's something you can never, ever, ever take back. So just throw them in the bunk if you don't have the ability to ignore it. And that's the best advice after 38 years of driving. And I'll tell you what, 38 years of driving, 4 million miles, I've never had a wreck. Maybe by the grace of God, surely not because of my skills, because we all know how I am. But those phones will kill you. So throw them in the bunk. If you can't ignore them, throw them in the bunk. I love y'all. And I'll talk to you later.
I don't know how to follow that. So, you know, it was interesting. We did a podcast. I can't remember who it was with earlier. We were talking about that wreck. Because I remember the night that you called me. I remember that happened. And,
Oh, do I remember? I was training.
Johnstone.
Yep.
Johnstone. Brian Johnstone.
yeah.
Brian, and I told him he come over. That pickup hit that car in the butt. There were 3 boys in that Camaro, and they was trying to take a left-hand turn into their trailer park. And it hit. It was foggy, and I said, Brian, what the hell was that? And we're coming up on it about half a mile behind it, and I could see this black spot in the fog. So I stopped and I throwed the blinkers on, and then I seen what had happened. There was a car off in the ditch. The pickup had flipped on its side, and the red car, the Camaro, over in the other ditch. I said, Brian, get out. I said, go check on them people in that red car. I said, I'll check on these people here. Well, when I went over to that truck, that car, there was a man from the trailer park. He's probably 70 years old, and he said, I can't get in. So I took a pry bar and we pried it open out of that pickup, the lid, and I said, they're all dead.
Wow.
And Brian come over, he goes, those boys are hurt really bad. And I said, well, has somebody called the ambulance? And the lady at the trailer park says, yes, they're on their way, blah, 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 the fire department. And Brian started to go over to that car. I said, Brian, don't go over to that car. I said, there's some things in life you can't unsee. I said, you don't want to see what's in there. And then the fire department got there, and they helped, and we covered the car up. And that was caused by a text. The man in the pickup was reading a text when the boys in the red car was going to take the left-hand turn into their trailer park. He hit them in the rear end, went over their car, and landed in the windshield of that lady who was 8 months pregnant with 3 little boys in the back seat. A text message cost them their life. When their father went to work that morning, he went to work with a wife that was 8 months pregnant, 3 little boys. And when he came home that night, he didn't have a family left. So throw them goddamn phones in the back seat if you can't keep from looking at them. That's what I say to the world. And I know that sounds terrible to say, but throw them in the back seat. If you can't keep yourself from looking at it, throw it away. When I retire in about 18 years,
And how old are you now?
I'll be 60 in November.
60.
Young.
I'm going to throw mine away forever. That way, when I'm out fishing, and y'all know I love to fish, I'll tell you some fishing stories.
No,
Boy,
no,
let me
no,
tell you.
no. We're gonna stay on track here. No fishing stories today.
But that way, my wife can't go, "Are you done fishing now?" "Yeah, Jennifer, I'm done fishing."
You know,
Bullshit.
Jennifer can hear this.
I'm sorry, Jennifer. That was the biggest mistake I ever made.
All right.
I love you, honey.
So both of you have trained new drivers, and a lot of times I get phone calls from people that are interested in coming to LGT, and they're a little worried because it's hazmat and it's gases that are under pressure, and so one of the first questions they ask is, well, are you going to train me, and what's that training like? So can you kind of walk through what you guys do when you train a new driver?
Go ahead.
Well, what I do is I get them familiarized with the trailers, the valves, explain to them whether it's cryogenic or CO2. I show them everything on the belly box, show them the valves, where they can get an idea in their head what we do. And then I show them, when I hook up everything, I go through what I'm doing. Whenever I'm hooking it up, tell them why we're hooking it up like this and all that. And then, I do it the first time, and then I let them do it the second time. That way they get more comfortable with it. And, and then whenever we start unloading, after the first load, I just stand back and watch them and, make sure they don't do nothing wrong. I tell them take their time, read the instruction paper we give them, go step by step. I said, I ain't gonna let you mess up, but I don't care if it takes you an hour to hook up. That way you can get it. Just slow down, don't be in no hurry, pay attention, and that way, after a while, the speed will come to you.
Exactly.
And I tell them when they blowing down to make sure on the blowdown lines, don't just crack them. Go ahead and open them up where the pressure can get on out. And there's a certain little sound you got to listen for. If you don't hear it whistling or something like that right there, and it just all of a sudden stops, I tell them, when you hear that, do not break that line loose, because it's done iced up on you.
Okay.
That's called an ice plug. If you hear the pop pop and you don't hear, whistle for me. That if you don't hear that and you hear pop pop, stop. Because if you hear the pop pop, you got an ice plug.
Exactly.
And then
So
you'll
do
end
you
up.
ride with them? Are you riding with them in the big truck? That's a question that people always ask
No.
me about. Okay, so
We
would
follow
you?
them in a pickup.
Okay. And is there a set number of trips that you do, or how do you gauge when somebody's ready?
You just know. When that guy, you can stand back for that man or woman, and they can hook it up and purge the lines and run the valves, and they've been to several different tank setups, and they figure it all out by themselves with you just standing there and not saying a word. They got it. Some people get it in a week. I've had guys that are great drivers here right now. It took me 5 weeks. It just, when they got it.
When they get comfortable with it, I'm talking about.
And
the
then you
speed
talk to
people.
them and you say, do you feel comfortable
Yeah.
with the trailer? Do you feel comfortable with the tanks you're going to? Do you feel comfortable with the I've had a lot of guys that have more trouble with the paperwork and the what's it called in the truck?
People
net.
Yeah. Oh yeah, e-logs. That's it. I'm not in e-logs. I still do paper logs.
You do not.
No, I don't.
Okay.
That was a lie.
What's the hardest part about learning CO2?
The hardest part about learning CO2,
Yeah.
your equalization.
Okay.
Okay, I just can't beat this into people's heads, and neither can Donnie. How do you equalize from the truck to the tank?
Well, it's easy. You go hook up your line and open the valves. and
Which
you-
line?
The vapor line, and then
Thank you. People try to equalize through the liquid line.
most of them do, and
You can't
know-
equalize through the liquid line. You got to equalize through the vapor line, because if you equalize through the liquid line, if I've got more pressure in my trailer or more pressure in my tank, what's going to happen when I open that liquid line? It's going to try to fill the other vessel.
it's going to go to the lowest pressure.
Yes. It's just like, boy, I was about to say pouring piss out of a boot. But it's like the easiest thing I found that I can show people. I take 2 balloons and a straw.
Okay.
I blow one balloon up great big and I leave the other one empty. I put the straw in it and let it equalize. I
Oh,
said, that's
very
what
cool.
you're doing. You're equalizing the 2 tanks. And of course, when I go like that, the balloons blow off, and that's always fun. I drop my straw. I got to put it back in my soda pop. Tastes like dirt. But no, that is what people don't understand. That is my biggest problem. I'm sure Donnie's too.
Oh, yeah.
People do not understand equalization of pressure. They don't understand pressure. You take a tire, your car tire, you got 40 pounds of pressure in your tire, 35 pounds of pressure in your tire. That's air pressure. That's all you got in that trailer. Above that liquid, it takes, what is it, 68 psi to keep
68 to
CO2?
70.
Yeah. Carbon dioxide to liquid state. Now I tell everybody, if your gauge goes below 100, you're turning into dry ice. And you need to call somebody. Call Pam, call Christian, call you, Josh, call Donnie. Don't move that trailer. If your trailer goes below 100 psi, you're done. Just sit there and wait for one of us to make a really bad decision. And if you call me, it probably will be a really bad decision. But pressurization, people don't. My last guy was probably one of the smartest guys I ever trained in my life. And he could not understand trying to equal the pressure in the trailer and the tank. And he was a brilliant man. But he just couldn't grasp that. And then when I did the little balloon thing, it was like a light bulb went off in his head.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Mm-hmm.
I see this all through the industry. You try to tell them, we got to equalize pressure between the trailer and the tank before we can do anything. First we purge the line, then we equalize the pressure, then we pump it off. I said, because that pump is not a high pressure pump, that is just a transfer pump on a CO2 pump. Well, they understand that, but they don't understand the pressure. Ain't that what you see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm talking about most time you have a hard time getting them to understand it's got to equalize.
Yeah.
But once you get that drove into their head and they do it,
Then they
they
understand.
understand it. And I always tell them, if they get to a customer tank, when they see the pressure gauge, if it's over 300, or if it's 300 and above, they need to bleed the tank down a little bit. That way,
Unless it's like the one up there in Monroe,
yeah,
Wisconsin. But there's a great big sign. You need to read their signage, guys, when you go to a tank, and read your paperwork. Because, like, we had a driver bleed that tank down up there at Monroe at, what's it called? Kitchens at Cargill. He blew it down to 285, and it says right there on the gate, a 3x3 sign says, "Do not lower this tank pressure below 300 to 315." Well,
Why is that so important? Why does a customer want it not to go below a certain pressure?
that's what their equipment inside requires for them to do what they're doing.
So when you drop it below that pressure,
You shut the plant down.
okay.
And guess what happens when you shut the plant down?
You get a bad.
I get a phone call.
Yes, and Air Products or whoever the customer is gets a Prax Air Liquide. They get a call and they go, "Well, who done it?" "Well, it's one of those LGT drivers." "Well, I guess you better call Miss Beccatelli."
Oh my God.
And then I get a call in the middle of the night. "Steven, what? Your driver, XXX, did something stupid. So, did you teach him to do stupid stuff?" "No, I did not." "Well, what's wrong with him?" "I guess he's stupid, Tammy."
That is not how the conversation goes.
No, I can't tell you how the conversation goes because this is a child-friendly broadcast.
So what about cryogenics? What's the hardest part about learning nitrogen?
Holding the tank pressure.
Okay.
When you do cryogenics, I don't care if it's oxygen, nitrogen, argon, hydrogen, what you're doing. When you start pumping, here's what I do. I open the bottom fill all the way up,
Okay.
and I count how many turns because you've got different valve systems. If it's a 3-turn system, I open the top fill 1.5. If the 13 system, I open it 6 or 7. And that gives you a start place. Then you kick her in gear and you start pumping slow. About 50 pounds, your pump pressure about 50 pounds over your tank. Then you find where your tank is. Okay, if the pressure's going up, remember this. Here's what it is. Bottom fill increases pressure. Top fill decreases
Yeah.
pressure.
Okay.
So, pressure's going up. Open the top fill to decrease. Because it's a top fill, if you could see the inside of that tank, it's like a shower head in your shower. And when that 320 degree or 284 degree oxygen or whatever, 281 degree argon come down through there, it cools the atmosphere up there in that tank. Well, when it cools it, it drops the pressure. Top fill drops pressure. Bottom fill increases pressure. You see what I'm saying? Donnie,
Oh yeah,
are you with me, buddy?
I'm with you.
Wake up. Well, you're getting old.
So I want to ask Donnie, do you think that's the hardest part about cryogenics?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the most difficult thing you have on the cryogenics, getting the guys to understand that the top fill lowers the pressure, bottom fill raises it.
And you can't walk away from a tank.
Right.
Some tanks, I call them, and I probably shouldn't, I call them ladies. Some ladies are real easy to get along with. You can set that pressure, and Donnie will tell you, you can sit there and watch it the whole load, and it won't move 5 pounds. And then you get some of them, they're just
High maintenance.
They're just nutty. I mean, they're up pressure, down pressure, up pressure, down pressure. It's like, Stephen, do this, Stephen, do that. No. We're going to have to cut that one. But, I mean, there's some tanks, and I do not understand this to my day, and I've been doing it 30 years. You can't make one settle down. It'll go up pressure, down pressure. You got to stand right there with that pressure gauge and them valves and play with it. I mean, you walk away from here to you, and the damn thing will go up 10 pounds. You go over and you adjust the valve, and it'll go down past where you want it to. So you crank it back half. It just, some tanks are stupid. I don't know what causes it. And one thing I don't understand, and Donnie's seen it too, when you get a full tricock, there's a full tricock valve on it, and when you get liquid coming out of it, you have it open all the time. That's how you know you're full. And it's got vapor coming out of it. Well, all at once, your pressure will just spike, and there's no liquid coming out your full tricock. Well, you got to shut down right then. I mean, your tank is full. When that pressure spikes, then go over and bleed it down through the blowdown or whatever you got to do to get the pressure back down to where it goes. I've been told over the years by a great man, his name was Amos Kears, that over years of use, some of them tanks they'll get, when we don't purge our lines properly, the moisture in the atmosphere, the ambient air that is in those lines, let's say you didn't purge it, you just push that in there. He said it builds a ball of ice up on the full tricock line in there. And he said after 4 or 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, he goes, you will have raised where the full tricock was here and the liquid level goes up and goes down it. He said you will have raised it an ice column 2-3 inches. And he said then you're pushing up toward your pressure cap up on the top of the tank. He goes, and that's why it spikes. You've went past full. But the tank don't know it's full because of all the moisture that has built up over the years. And I believe that's true. So when I go to a new tank, or I mean an old tank, you pull up on a site, you'll see an old tank. And you go, oh, this is no girl. So, and never, ever, this is what I tell everybody. So Donnie, never trust the gauge. I don't give a dang what that gauge says. That's just something to go by. Open that full tricock. On a CO2, it's your vapor vent. On cryogenics, it's your full tricock. From the time you start pumping to the time you get that load off, you have that thing open. That is the only thing you have to go by that tells you that tank's full. And on a cryogenic tank, your pressure gauge, if you think all at once it spikes on you and just goes crazy, just goes, the pressure goes up, shut your pump down, you're full. Even if there's nothing coming out, no liquid out that full tricock, because your gauge is up there close to full, but nothing comes out that full tricock and that pressure gauge goes up, you're done. Shut her down. Don't keep going. That's the best thing I can tell y'all.
Okay. I have another question. And this one's,
For Donnie.
well, it's not necessarily for Donnie, but one of the things that happens a lot, and I'm sure that people get really frustrated, is they get up there and they're ready to unload, and they go back and they try to start the pony motor, and the pony motor won't start. Right?
That's a Donnie question.
Yeah. How many times do you get called in the middle of the night saying your pony motor won't start?
I get called a good many times. I'm talking about, it's, sometimes it's something simple that we can take care of over the phone. Then sometimes after we go through all our little check deals that I go through with them on, make sure everything's getting the right amount of voltage and all that, Sometimes it may be something to do with the fuel, you know.
What's the first thing you check?
Will it
they
crank?
say it won't, I asked them, I said, is the motor turning over?
Yep.
You know, that way I know that it's getting the voltage that it needs to engage the starter and all that. And then I go, if it's on a crowd trailer, they say it's turning over, but ain't far. And I said, well, there's several things it could be. It could be the Murphy switch has gone bad. You know, and I tell them how we'll try bypassing it, see if it cranks. Before I go there, I tell them to go back on the crowd trailers. I tell them to go back to back and make sure their emergency stop button is pulled out, not pushed in.
Okay.
Because sometimes where they're at, they bump them and don't realize it. And if they bump in just a little bit, it's not going to let that engine crank. It'll turn over, but it ain't going to crank. So I have them go through that and try it. If it don't, then we, if they got that Murphy switch on them, we'll bypass it. And then most time it'll crank. On some of them, they got a speed sensor over in the bell house, and sometimes it goes bad. Then we got to run a wire from the battery around to the fuel stop solenoid to order to, you know, to get it to crank.
Mm-hmm.
We'll bypass it. But I'm knowing about this. Sometimes we, you know, it'd be something we would have to send them to the shop or get somebody there to check it. You know, it could be a starter relay or a fuel stop solenoid or something like that, you know.
Right.
And you know, some of the stuff, you know, some of the places can do it. Some of the times they can't. That's, you know, we have to either get them to part or we got to go to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I reckon that's where I come in.
Make
Yep.
sure the fuel is treated properly, it doesn't gel.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
So, and in cold weather, you know, you want to make sure you got plenty of anti-fuel gel in there to keep it from gelling up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important thing.
And a
in winter.
battery charger.
For those of you who don't know, the person in the background is Scott Sedak, and he's here listening. And Scott makes many trips to North Dakota in the middle of the winter with his trailer. And I don't know how many times this winter you ended up back in Omaha and the pony motor wouldn't start.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's a veteran and definitely knows the tricks of the trade to get that pony motor started.
For sure.
What about you, Steve? You got any suggestions besides those?
No.
Talk
Keep-
nice to it.
Yeah. Don't ever curse her.
Yeah.
When she don't start, just tell her you love her and
Sometimes it just
Call
takes a little
Pam.
heat. Takes a little heat. Sometimes we've been into a wash bay where it'll be normal temperatures, and they'll just blow warm water, you know, and you're in that warm building,
Right.
and after 30 minutes it'll kick over.
Yeah.
All of a
Now,
sudden.
when you're up on the fuel island and you're putting your fuel in there and your fuel additive and stuff, and you're in North Dakota, you're in South Dakota, you're in Wisconsin, Nebraska, wherever, and it's 40 below zero. Start that damn motor right then
Leave her run.
and close the doors and leave her run till you get to where you're going. Don't do like one gentleman that I helped out 3 times in one night up in Montana. When we first started this company, I had a little old trailer I called Little Herbie. It had a little gasoline motor.
Oh my
And
God, I forgot about
Pam
your-
gave this other guy who come along later a brand spanking new, beautiful diesel, big, fancy LGT trailer. And me and little old Herbie, we run around all winter up there. Cold was cold. And here was this big boy with his fancy truck and trailer. And he got out there one day on the job site. It was like 55 below zero. And he goes, I'm cold. I said, oh, get in a cab. Cry baby. And he gelled up his engine. So we went to town, got some 911 and stuff, put it in there, started the motor. I said, okay, we go out there and unload it now. I get out there. He'd shut his motor off, and it's gelled up again. So we went back town. Heated her up, put some 911 on there, new fuel filter, started it up. I said, do not shut that motor off. Okay. Shut the doors on it. I took off back out to the oil field location there. He gets out there. He coming down the road. I can hear his big old pipes. But I can't hear no trailer motor going. I said, that gentleman has shut his pony motor off again. He gets up there, and sure enough, I said, turn around, we'll go back down one more time. 3 times. And I had him disconnect from his trailer and take the little Herbie, and I took the diesel engine, and I took it out there with it running, and unloaded it and brought it back to him. He goes, you can't go down the road with that little diesel motor running. I said, who in the hell told you that? I said, DOT don't care. Highway Patrol don't care. I don't care. Pam don't care. God don't care. I said, it's 50 below zero. Take the damn thing out there running.
All right, so
Like the winter time.
after how many years of driving? 38.
38.
38. How many you got?
I started in 1984 when I got out of the Army.
I started driving in 1977, or no, wait a minute, 76.
1976. So after those many years of driving,
96.
what's the
6,
best
16.
advice that you can give to somebody who's just starting out driving?
Well, my best advice is to listen to people when you're around them, you know, and mainly listen to somebody that's been in it for a long time, some veterans. You know, you always can pick up on stuff when people's talking that will help you down the road. You know, some of these kids coming out of these truck driving school, you know, they learn the paperwork, they learn everything in truck driving school, how to back up and all that right there. But they hadn't learned everything. So, if I see something on them, I just tell them, you know, just pay attention and listen to people whenever you're around. If you're not even in their conversation, just if you close enough to listen to them, listen and take it for what it's worth. I said, then you'll eventually catch on to what people's talking about. You know, I've been in truck stops where I've seen guys come in training people. The trainer would get out of the truck while the guy's trying to get into a parking spot and just leave him. Wouldn't be helping him, telling him what to do, or trying to explain to him what he needed to do. Just leave him, you know. And I felt sorry for a guy one time out over in Decatur, Alabama. Had a spread axle flatbed. He was trying to get in a parking spot, but he wasn't. The trainer got out, went inside, let him put it in there. I went over and told him what to do, and 2 times he had it backed up in the hole and got out. He said, I don't know where my trainer went to. I said, well, he wasn't much of a trainer. I said, he should have stayed here and helped you.
Right.
You know, and, you know, it's been several times in truck stops where I've helped people get backed into a spot where they're having trouble.
That's what you should do.
You
That's
know,
what
well,
everybody should do. That's the problem with the industry. Nobody wants to help nobody no more.
And all
You
this-
know, if you, these truck stops were built in 1970, 1960, 1980.
They're
When
tight.
when I started driving, a long trailer was a 48 foot. Now there's 53s and some 60s. Well, the truck stops, the parking places ain't built for them. You know? So when you see a guy or a gal trying to back a big old long box in or whatever, you don't want them to hit your truck. You don't want them to hit the next guy's truck. get out and spot for them, you know. Stop, you know, come on back and cut it this way, whatever you got to do. And help one another. Don't just sit there and go, boy, he's going to hit that nut. And I do that all the time.
Yeah. And most people, you know, got these reefer units or the dry van.
Yeah.
They have the trailer tandem slid all the way up front, and they trying
And you
to
get
back
that
in.
trailer swing.
You know, well, they don't. Some of them don't realize it. If you take time and mark where you got that tandem set for your weight to be right, mark it, and then slide that tandem all the way to the back of that trailer. Back there, that takes away from that trailer swing. You ain't got to worry about it. Slide it back into the parking spot, and then once you get back in there, then you slide that tandem back up where it was at, then you'll be legal when you get to a set of scales. So most people don't realize that. You know,
Right.
It just takes
And a lot of people
5
don't
minutes.
realize you got a semi like this. You got a whole row of them down through here. You got that big old 10, 12 foot of trailer back there behind the trailers. You come out of here and you turn to the right. Well, what happens? Pow! You knock the mirror off the guy next to you with the ass end of your trailer. You don't even know you done it.
Yeah.
10 feet of overhang.
Yeah.
Easy.
It's called trailer swing. So if you'll slide those tandems all the way back till you get out, and it's sometimes a booger to get out, don't get me wrong, because you got these trucks to worry about, you know, the truck next to you, and and the trucks in front of you. You got to work it, but you don't have no trailer swing to worry about. If you leave them axles up here and you're trying to get it worked out of here, whap, whap, you're hitting the truck next to you.
Right.
And you wake him up, he's not going to be in a good mood.
Right.
I've seen it happen in Little Rock, Arkansas. I yelled at the guy on CB, I said, man, you just tore that dude's hood and mirror off. I didn't hit nothing. I said, you didn't hit nothing, but your trailer did.
So, Steve, what's your words of wisdom or advice for somebody just starting out in trucking?
My words of advice, the smartest thing I can tell you, be to slow down, get out and look when you're backing up, or even if you're turning in on your blind side. If you're not sure where the pole is or whatever, get out and look at it. I don't give a damn how mad people behind you get. It's better than tearing down a pole and tearing up the side of the equipment and the stuff that comes along with that. Take care of your equipment. Actually get out every day or every other day and look at your brakes, look at your tires, look at your rims, look at your airlines. Check the oil in your truck. Check the oil in your pony motors if you got them. Actually physically do that. Don't just pencil whip it. I mean, it'll save you so much in the long run, and the company. If you just say, hey, I got a bad brake, I got a bad tire, I got a bad airline, rather than pull into a DOT inspection and they go, well, you got a bad brake, you got a bad airline, you got a bad tire. And then you got a ticket on top of that, and your CO, what do they call it, CSA 2010 score goes up, and companies goes up. Everybody's mad. Just take care of your equipment and look at it and take care of it. If you'll take care of your equipment, whether it's yours or the company's, it will take care of you and make you a living. If you don't take care of it, it will let you down on the side of the road and you'll go broke. And so will the company you're working for. It's a hand-in-hand thing. You got to help each other. The company's got to help you with contracts and stuff, and you got to help the company with taking care of the equipment and being responsible, being a good driver.
All right. Well, I want to thank Donnie and Steve for being with us today. It's always good to hear from the experts and get a good advice and good tips for us on the road. So appreciate you being here today. And that's a wrap on this episode of Driver Stories. Make sure to check out our website on lgttransport.com for more information about the show and LGT Transport. You can also find us on social media and let us know what you think of our podcast. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Driver Stories.